Hi guys, it's John from Android Addicts, and this is a battery drain comparison test between the Galaxy A34 and the Galaxy A54. So these have both got 5,000 mAh batteries, but the A34 is a much cheaper phone, coming in at around £300, whereas the Galaxy A54 is around £450. So these have both got SIM cards installed. They are on different networks, I'm afraid, but I've set them both to be a maximum of 4G+. So they can't go on to 5G, as this one does have a 5G SIM and this one doesn't. So it should be as fair a test as possible. And what I will do to start off with is actually turn off the Wi-Fi, and we're going to do some tests on our 4G connection here. So this is basically going to be as if you're away from home and you're using your phone as you would normally. So we're going to do a camera test, we'll then do a bit of rendering, we'll then do some phone call tests, and then we'll do some web browsing. We'll do a bit of Twitter, and then we'll move back onto Wi-Fi for the remainder of the test here, so you can get an idea as to how long these phones could last potentially if you bought one of them. So you can see here at the top we do have this widget floating. This is displaying the current temperature of the phone. It's also displaying the battery percentage here, and it does have the battery temperature. Now I've got these both set to 80% brightness. Now I know that this isn't 100% accurate because the number of lumens or nits will be slightly different between the two, but that's as accurate as I can get it for this test. Another thing to confirm here is the software version. So they're both on the March update here. So let's unplug these from the charger and start the timer. Okay, and we're ready to start the camera test. So what we're going to do here is just record 4K 30 FPS video for 30 minutes. And then once we've got that video recorded, we're going to just edit it and just render it and see which one edits and renders the fastest. And then we'll move on with the remainder of the tests. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this kind of video. And if you've got any questions or comments, obviously leave them down below. I will do my best to answer them. Don't forget there are time codes in the description if you want to skip to any particular part of this test. And we'll come back at the end of the video with a roundup of all of the apps and how much percentage they used. Okay, so there we are. That was half an hour of recording at 4K 30, and the A34 has gone down to 92%, whereas the A54 has only gone down to 95%, so it's lost not 5% here and 8% over here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to edit our video and just apply a filter to it and just see exactly how long it takes to render with these different chipsets. Obviously we're using the Dimensity 1080 over here, and we got the Exynos 1380 over here. Okay, so the A34 has just finished. It did take a few minutes longer than the A54 here, so the Exynos is definitely performing faster in the video encoding. But importantly, the A34 lost 8% of its battery. It took about 36 minutes to render the 30-minute video, and the A54 lost 7% battery, and it took just under 30 minutes to render the 30-minute video. Next up, we're going to do the call test, and I'm going to just call one phone from the other, and we'll let the phone call run for an hour. That should be long enough to give an idea as to how much battery life the phone call will take. Now you can see here they're both on 4G. We'll see if that switches to 3G potentially during the call. I have got Wi-Fi turned off, and Wi-Fi calling is off anyway. But we'll try the call now and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we've got the call started now, so I'm going to leave this for an hour. You can see here we're both on 4G still. It is switching a bit between 4G plus and 4G on either phone, but we're not too worried about that. So I'm going to lock the screen here because you don't normally have the screen on when you're talking, and we'll come back in an hour and see how much battery they have left. Right, so that was the hour of phone call, and we can see here that the phones went down to 80% and 82%. So that's a loss of 4% on the A34 and a loss of 6% on the A54. Both running at 4G and 4G plus. It was switching between, I kept checking, so it's as fair a test I can make it. So yeah, about 6% an hour or 4% an hour on the A34 here. Right, so next up we're doing a web browser test, and the best way I've thought of doing this is to use the Bing app here, which you can endlessly scroll for news and other bits and pieces. And I think that's a good representation of a web browsing test. You can obviously click on these articles and it will load it up in the browser. So there's a browser built into the app, and this is obviously what's displaying bits and pieces here. So what I'm going to do is just leave this running for an hour, and again we're still on 4G here, so we'll see how these two do. So if I start this off, we'll come back in an hour and see how much battery is left. Okay then, so after an hour of web browsing there, we are down to 69% here on the A34 and 72% on the A54. So the A34 used up 11% and the A54 used up 10%. So not a massive difference there between the two. So the next test we're going to do is the Twitter test. So again, we're just going to be scrolling through Twitter for an hour. Okay then, so that is our hour of Twitter, and we've gone down to 6% here on the A34 and 66 on the A54. That's a loss of 9% on the A34 and 6% on the 54. So what we're going to do now is just an hour of standby. So I'm just going to turn these off, and we're just going to leave the always on display here to run for an hour. And again, we're not on Wi-Fi, so this will give you a good idea as to what your standby time might be like when you're out of your house. So I'm going to let this run now, and we'll come back in an hour and see how they look. Okay, so that is the end of the standby test, and we can see that the A34 here went down to 58% from 60, and the A54 went from 66 to 65. Now, we don't know how close either were to the sort of next percent down on the battery, so even though this is showing 2% loss, it could be that when we started at 60%, it was just on the edge of going to 59%, but either way, it's about 1% per hour for each phone without Wi-Fi on. Right, so we're connected to the same network now, and we're going to carry on with the test. So we're going to start off with TikTok. Okay then, so that was TikTok for an hour, and on the A34 we lost 9%, so we're down to 49% now, and on the A54 we lost 11%, so we're down to 54 on the A54. So let's move on now. We're going to go into Instagram Reels and just get to that running. Run this for an hour as well, and we'll come back once they're done. Okay, I think that's quite enough of Instagram there. So after an hour, we've lost 12% on the A34 and 11% on the A54. So a bit of a trend here. The A34 always seems to lose a bit more than the A54 in these tests. Now we're going to move on to Reddit, do some scrolling there, and we'll see what an hour's worth of Reddit looks like. Can't be any worse than Instagram, surely. Okay, so we're down to 28% now on the 34 and 35% on the 54. So that hour of Reddit was minus 9% here, and minus 8% over here. So next up, we're going to go into Spotify, and I'm just going to play an hour of music. So I'm going to let this play for an hour with the screen off, and we'll see what we come back with. Obviously, you don't normally have the screen on when you're listening to music. So we'll come back after an hour and we'll see how they do. Okay, so there we are with an hour of Spotify, and both phones lost exactly 4%. So we're going to move on now to a YouTube playlist. Okay, so down to 16% now on the A34, and 23 is still remaining on the A54. So an hour of YouTube used up 8% on the 34 and just 6% on the 54. So what I'm going to do now is load into a game of Call of Duty. I don't think we've got long left on the A34 here. Okay, so here are the graphics settings that I've got set. Like I say, if you go to max, you go down to low graphics. So we're going to leave it on high and very high. Okay, now we'll load into the same map as well to make it as fair as possible. Okay, so that was a half an hour of COD Mobile. The A34 lost 7% and the A54 also lost 7%. So you can see it's a really well optimized game. But we are down to 9% now on the A34 here, whereas we've still got 16% left on the A54. So next up, we're going to load into Genshin Impact, and I'm pretty sure this is going to kill the A34, if not both phones, so we'll find out. We're obviously nearly at 11 hours for both phones here, so it's really good performance from the two Galaxy A series here. Really impressive stuff. Okay, so same as COD Mobile, we're going to leave these for half an hour, and once we come back, I imagine, well, this has already gone down to 8%. I'm pretty sure this will be dead. When the brightness goes down at 5%, I will try and make sure we put it back up to around 80%, and we'll see whether the A54 can last the full half hour with its 15% remaining. See here, the speed of the A34 a bit slower at the moment. Temperature-wise though, they are about the same temperature. This is slightly warmer, 31 degrees battery versus 30, and the CPU running at 26 and 27 respectively. So I'll leave these going now, and we'll see how long they can last. These are running on the lowest settings at 60 FPS, by the way, just so you know. Okay, so there we have it. The final results are in, and we scored 11 hours and 20 minutes on the A34 and 11 hours and 27 minutes on the A54. So that's only a difference of 7 minutes in total, which isn't a huge amount really when you consider the price difference between the two. So obviously the A34 comes in at around 300 and this comes in at around 450. So is it worth that extra £150 for 7% battery overall? I don't know, probably not in my opinion, but obviously you've got to be the judge of that. I'll put the scores and timings on the screen, and you can then make an informed decision hopefully as to which phone is right for you and whether or not you think these are going to last in one of your typical days. I was quite impressed actually with the final 5% of these phones. Normally on a lot of phones you get to 5% and then suddenly it goes 4, 3, 2, 1 and it's gone. But these actually lasted quite a long time after that 5% mark was up. So quite impressive overall, and really impressed for the price as well. These are really good batteries, and I think the only reason this lasted a bit less time was because the Dimensity does work a bit harder than the Exynos in this case. But overall, for 7 minutes, is it worth that extra bit of money? Don't forget to check out my gaming test, where I've done a full proper gaming test between these two. I've also done a comparison between the two, so you can just finally hopefully make your decision as to which one of these you want to go for. So if you've got any questions at all, do leave them down below. If this helped you at all, please do like and subscribe. Don't forget to click on the bell notification to be notified when I next release a video. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.